Hello and welcome to the Center for Spiritually Integrated Arts, a Centers for Spiritual Living teaching center. I am Reverend Dr. Raymont Anderson. I am the founder and the spiritual director. Now, as you are sitting there joining us, you may have questions, any number of questions, such as, who am I? How did I get here? Spiritually integrated arts means what exactly? What is a teaching center? Well, what is Centers for Spiritual Living? What is that? What does that even mean? Or New Thought, or religious science, or science of mind and spirit? You may have any number of questions about this specific community, about the parent organization, CSL, our philosophy, our teaching, our liberation theology. Any number of questions. Feel free to send an email. We look forward to connecting more and building our virtual community, our global community. And if you haven't connected yet on social media, feel free to do so. This is your invitation now. Also, did you know that all of our Sunday messages are archived on our YouTube channel? You can watch it anytime. Now, questions about anything, such as becoming a member. What does that mean? What does membership entail? And if you live somewhere far and already belong to a spiritual community, can you be a member of more than one? The simple answer is yes, you can. Just like you can shop at more than one grocery store, you can attend or be a member of more than one gym. We are building beloved community. So you can do both. You can be a member of both. You can be involved with both. That's what being in spiritual community means. So we welcome you. We invite you. We are so appreciative that you have found this community and that you have joined us today. We bless you. We love you. We welcome you. Live long and prosper. Sit back, relax, and enjoy the rest of our Sunday message. Love you. Connect with you soon. Blessings. Namaste and greetings. Hello and welcome to June 16th. Unbounded and unstoppable. You said what now? Unbounded and unstoppable. Okay. So if we believe in something and we believe in it so powerfully and so passionately, we believe in something so deeply, and as a result, we choose, we decide to pursue, we decide to do something, we might feel some kind of freedom, the sense of freedom that we have to accomplish whatever this is. That there are no limits or no barriers that can stop us from whatever this thing is that we desire to accomplish. We have this feeling that there is nothing that is or can hold us back, hold us from accomplishing this thing. We feel unbounded. We feel unstoppable to express and to manifest that which is life's creativity expressing as us. And when we feel this way divinely, we feel irrepressible and unrestrained. We feel liberated and lifted. We feel ready to take on anything and everything with life affirming faith, strength, and trust. Trust in the unlimited potentiality of the infinite that is incarnating itself in, through, and as us and all that is around us. Unbounded and unstoppable. Do you feel unbounded and unstoppable? Do you feel this sense of liberation, emancipation, freedom? Yeah, I was waiting for you to chime in. Because if you do feel freedom, then I would ask, freedom as it relates to freedom from something and freedom to something. In other words, if we think of those who were bound and made to serve as slave labor, those individuals who were kidnapped and forcibly brought to the Americas, transatlantic slave trade, Harriet Tubman, freedom from this thing called slavery, freedom to live up north, to live life on her terms, freedom to have the empowerment to go back down south and liberate others to be free from that institution and free to pursue their own life desires and dreams. So if you feel this thing called freedom, what is it that you are freed from? And what is it that you are freed into? Are you able to name and state and explain? Freed from an addiction, free to live healthier, more holistically, freed from an abusive relationship, free to engage in a relationship that is loving, nurturing, and supportive. What is it that you have been or are or desire to be free from? And being freed from now puts you in a space to be free to be what? Free to do what? Free to have what? There are a lot of people, for a variety of reasons, who do not feel the energy. They can't even conceptualize this thing called freedom, because for them, it's all a matter of limitation, one form or another. So when we talk about limitation, what? Yeah, okay, I see your hand, and we were going to talk about, but okay, so what about the limitations related to science and biology? Yes. And what about the limitations imposed by culture and society? Yes, we were going to get there if you had been a little bit more patient, young lady, but it's okay. And you said what now? Last week I said something about, oh, and nothing will be impossible for you. Did I mean that literally? Okay. So based upon your question, there are a variety of kinds of limitations. And so when we use the word, are we using it as jargon and simply talking about we should be free from all limitations? Well, biologically, this thing called my body is limited to a certain height, a certain width, a certain depth. There's a limit. My skin isn't forever, ever, ever, everywhere. My skin has limits. My finger is limited in, where it is and what it does in order to be able to. My heart is limited to the amount of space it takes within my chest, and it, there's limits. There's limits to various things regarding science. Yes, it's H2O, because the moment you turn the 2 into an 8, it's no longer water. So it's limited. The formula that is water is limited to a certain number of hydrogen molecules and a certain number of oxygen molecules. There is a limit. Your coffee cup has a limit to how much coffee it will hold. And culture and society, there are limits that are meant to be life affirming and safe, speed limit. And there are cultural and societal limits that say whites eat here and blacks eat there. Yes, there are all kinds of things. Yes. And our invitation, if we are going to be unbound and unstoppable and free and liberated, we have to be able to identify these limitations. We have to be able to identify which are life affirming and which are not, and then act accordingly. Now, to the question of, and nothing will be impossible to you. Do I mean that literally? I don't know. And I don't know that that matters right now. If I mean it literally, if Jesus meant it literally, if Dr. Holmes meant it literally, we can get there eventually. What we know right now is that because of certain cultural limitations, societal limitations, medical limitations, we're invited to bring the energy of unbound and unstoppable, of freedom, here first. Worry about being able to fly later. Worry about being able to read minds later. Focus on, well, and I use the term worry metaphorically and linguistic convenience. Be concerned about that later. Our number one concern right now is, how do we liberate all of humanity? How do we liberate the animal kingdom? How do we liberate the earth itself so that it's no longer being poisoned by toxins? So that no more pets are being hurt, harmed, and killed by. How are we addressing this now? How are we addressing the harm done by war? How are we addressing the harm being done by medical professionals who malpractice, teachers who malpractice, theologians who malpractice? How are we liberating? How are we being unbound and unstoppable regarding that stuff? Once that's taken care of, yeah, then okay, fine. We can start talking about the ability to, all things are possible, telepathy, all things are possible, time travel. whatever, then focus on what we need to focus on now. But do I believe it's possible? Their home says, when the soul knows freedom, the law will free the body, and the outer life will express health, happiness, and success. Once again, jargon, because if I ask this person, what is success? Say I ask Zuckerberg, what is success? Or Bezos, what is success? Or Bill Gates. Suppose I ask any of them, what is success? Based on their criteria. So jargon. So for us, we're referencing all of this stuff as it pertains to spirituality, science of mind and spirit, divine laws, etc. So, what then is health and happiness, joy and success as it relates to our divinity? Because once again, he says, when the soul knows freedom, when the soul is emancipated, liberated, the law will liberate and emancipate the body. And I would venture to say it would do so to the body, as in our physical body, the body of our intellect, the body of our politics, the body of our sciences, the body of humanity. It will free the body. And all that is expressed as our outer life will be an expression of our wholeness, our perfection, our completeness, physical health and well-being, emotional health and well-being, psychological health and well-being, spiritual health and well-being, financial health and well-being, social health and well-being in our relationships. It's going to be expressed everywhere and in everything. The happiness of the divine, the successfulness of this way of life will be expressed. Now, just for clarity's sake, because Dr. Holmes references soul, references spirit, and oftentimes we, will do this interchangeable thing of soul, spirit. So just for the sake of having a little bit more clarity as it pertains to science of mind and spirit, let's clarify that soul is the creative medium of spirit. Soul is the subjective side of life. It's subjective because it takes the thought of the conscious mind and it acts upon that. It can only carry out whatever is given to it. Like the soil can only work on the seed that is planted in it. Infinite in its power and infinite in its ability to do, but it's not, quote unquote, consciously aware of what it's doing. Like it doesn't consciously say, oh, I'm growing potatoes right now. Oh, I'm growing carrots right now. It just knows to be and to act on everything that it's given. Whereas spirit is God. It is within whom all, it is that presence and power. It is the circle, circumference nowhere, center everywhere. All exist within it. It is the self-knowing oneness. It is the conscious universe. It is the absolute. Spirit, in, through, and as each person, is that aspect of us that enables us to know ourselves. Spirit is all life. It is all love. It is all truth. It is all being, and it is cause and effect. Just so we're on the same page, without, also once again, without getting lost in the jargon. So when Dr. Holmes says, when the creative medium, right, when the soul knows freedom, when the creative medium knows freedom, the law, this creative medium, will free, will liberate the body. So once again, let's, just for the sake of going back to, so you know our Declaration of Principles, our we believe statements. We believe in God, the living spirit almighty, one individual. Okay, so it says, and the universe is the body of God. So it will free the body. It will free all that is. And this thing we refer to as our outer life, the conditions, the experiences, the effects, will express health, wholeness, perfection, completeness, happiness, joy, love, and success when the creative medium knows freedom. Now, how does the creative medium get to know freedom? We just said the creative medium doesn't consciously, it just does. Oh, but then we said that it's what the conscious mind gives to it. So we must know consciously, we must know freedom and give freedom. Our mental equivalence must be that of freedom, emancipation. And we give that to the creative medium, which then knows what was given to it and it acts accordingly. So let's do a little bit deeper dive. Let's remix this a little bit more. When the creative medium experiences freedom in its ability to fully be what it is and do what it does, then the law of cause and effect will free each person in such a way that their inner emotional, spiritual, intellectual life and their outer life experiences, effects, conditions will express greater overall health, well-being, happiness, peace, love, and success. So, it's back to the practice. It's back to the idea of how do we practice this thing called freedom? How do we practice being unbound and unstoppable? How do we conceptualize it intellectually? How do we feel it emotionally? How do we behave in such a way that we are demonstrating it? Michael A. Singer says, the day you decide you are more interested in being aware of your thoughts than you are in the thoughts themselves, that is the day you will find your way out. That is the day you will be set free. So for a moment, let's think of it this way. The day you decide that you are more interested in being nourished by the food than you are in reading the recipe for the meal and looking at the plate, that is the day that you will be able to taste it, ingest it, digest it, and be nourished by it. Are we ready to do that? Are we ready to stop reading the quotes and reading the passages and reading the textbook and taste it, ingest it, digest it? Let it nourish every cell of our being and enhance our lives. Are we ready for that degree of living? Or are we simply content to point at the moon while focusing on the finger that's doing the pointing. Have you ever heard the parable, the story from Siddhartha Gautama, the Buddha, who says, imagine someone is intending or aiming to show you the moon. They do so by pointing at it. The finger that is pointing is simply directing you where to look in order to see the moon. Without the pointing finger indicating where to look, you very well may not know where you are invited to look. You may look at that tree or look at the stone because you may not know what the moon even is. So the finger that is doing the pointing isn't what matters most. It only matters because it is giving you direction. It helps you to see. It helps you to know what direction to turn your gaze so that you see the moon for yourself. And in doing so, you then take in the moon and all of the beauty, and it is that matters most. When we read the Science of Mind textbook, it is a finger pointing the way. It is not the way itself. It is not that which is beautiful and empowering itself. It is merely a signpost pointing the way, directing the practice. But we have to, in the same way that the finger points, but I'm not looking where it's pointing. I can see it. I can read the words. And we believe that heaven is within, and we experience it to the degree that we become conscious of it. I see the words, but when do I look where those words are pointing? When do I embody what I am invited to embody by way of the pointing? Ralph Waldo Emerson invites, freedom is not the right to live as we please, but rather it is the right to find out how we ought to live in order to fulfill our fullest potential individually and collectively. So this goes back to that idea of freedom, because there were people, transatlantic slave trade, who had the freedom, the privilege to go kidnap people, had the freedom to claim this land is our land, it is not your land. So good, dear Indians, you need to back away now. And if you don't, yes, we will shoot you. Wait, time out. You're telling me this was their home. Turtle Island was theirs. But because of your privilege, your freedom, you took it. You created treaties that you broke and lied, deceived, because you felt you had the freedom to live how you please, rather than how ought we live together? How ought we collaborate and communicate and cooperate together in harmony? The freedom that says I'm going to take and live as I choose is not life-affirming freedom, because that freedom needs to be built on the backs and the bones of others. The freedom that says, how do I find the way to live and fulfill my divine potential, does so with others, in community, in collaboration, in cooperation, in divine oneness. Important to be able to discern one from the other. Eric Butterworth says, nothing else can satisfy or fulfill unless
unless you enjoy the freedom that comes from control of your inner world of mind and emotions. So unless you have control of your own self, nothing out here is going to give you satisfaction. Which is why those who have operated on freedom to do as they please are never satisfied with how much land they take, how many lies they tell, how many lives they ruin, how much colonization spreads and destroys and hurts and harms. Because their inner world, their mind, their emotions, their consciousness is out of, quote unquote, out of control. Thing outside of us. No pair of Jordache jeans, no Tesla, no iPhone, no relationship, no mansion, no amount of money will ever fulfill or satisfy unless we are internally, heart, mind, and soul, body, mind, and spirit, unless we are inherently satisfied and fulfilled. When we are inherently satisfied and fulfilled, we don't need the other things to complete us. We are complete. And in that completeness, we may not even, I don't even want that anymore. Because I thought that would be the thing. I don't even want it anymore. Or we may still desire it, but we desire it not to complete us. We desire it for completely different reasons, which means we become more conscious, more evolved consumers. We no longer engage in toxic capitalism the way we once did when we felt we had to. We now engage from a place of divine unity and oneness, divine freedom, which changes how we interact with the system as a whole. So what does it mean to be self-satisfied, self-fulfilled? Both lowercase s self and capital S self. Fulfilled of myself, satisfied of myself. And then Dr. Holmes says, the only reason a person is limited is that they have not allowed, we're going to remix this one. The only reason a person is limited is that they have not allowed the divine within them to more completely express. I figured you were going to show up. What's up? Right, that's why I said we were going to remix it. But anyhow, what about systemic racism? What about homomisia or transmisia? Islamomisia? What about gender bias? And any number of other systemic limitations that show up as legislative restrictions. Good point. So, like I said, we're going to remix it. So let's remix it. Breathe first. The only reason a person is limited by certain systemic issues is that they are acting within the confines of a collective consciousness that has created and operates based on its mental equivalent of oppression and limitation. When the individual chooses to live, move, and have their being in ways that supersede move away from, expand beyond the collective consciousness, and they operate. There's a lot of spellings. I was limited by spelling this week. And they operate in alignment with the divine truth of their being. Their emancipation will more completely express. So once again, let's think Harriet Tubman, Frederick Douglass, Marsha P. Johnson, Harvey Milk, Grace Lee Boggs, and the list goes on. We're operating within the systemic collective consciousness of oppression, lack, scarcity, etc. And at some point, each of these individuals said, even though I am within, being of the world versus in versus of, even though I am within the system, I need not be of the system. And the moment that realization kicked in and was understood, and they were on fire with that realization, they were unbound and unstoppable in being agents of liberation and emancipation, even within the system. So does a system exist? Yes. Gender bias? Yes. And yet, we need not be of that system, even though we are in the system. And in such a time as we continue to do the work, like Morpheus told Neo, it's just like the rules of a computer system, computer program. When you know the rules, some rules can be bent and others can be broken. When we understand the rules of systemic oppression, when we understand those rules, we bend them, we break them, we transform. That's what healing is. But if I can't identify, I go to the dentist and tell them I'm in pain, and the dentist says, where does it hurt? And I don't tell them. So they open my mouth and they investigate and they do x-rays and they don't see anything wrong. And they say, well, where's the pain? And I say, finally, it's in my right shoulder. Why are you in the dentist's office? I was in the neighborhood. When you understand what the condition is, you understand what brought the condition about, then we are able to put into spiritual practice whatever we need to put into spiritual practice. Prayer, meditation, journaling, voting, marching, contacting representatives, going to a therapist, going to an AA meeting, whatever that is, we are then in a position to do so, which then changes the system overall. It changes how alcohol is a temptation and how it affects us. It changes how relationships and domestic violence, it changes how red flags are, it changes how we connect with and operate within the system, because we are no longer of that system. All of these people, in one way, shape, or form, operated within the system, but did not operate of the system. Each of them operated in their own divine way, their own divine truth, their own divine expression, and in so doing, changed the system that they were working within. Their lives change the system to such a degree that generations after them have felt the impact and the influence of them being unbound and unstoppable. So we are currently the ancestors of generations yet to be born. Our ability to be unbound and unstoppable is what gives them a world that works for all. If we understand and if we practice what we are invited to practice. President Obama says our responsibility as citizens is to address the inequities and injustices that still linger, and that we secure our birthright freedoms for all people. How are we within Science of Mind and Spirit ensuring freedom, liberation, emancipation? Our fifth declaration, we believe the ultimate goal of life to be a complete emancipation, a complete freedom from all discord, from all inequities and all injustices of every nature, and that this goal is sure to be attained by all. What are we doing today to bring that about, to bring it into fruition? If we truly study, practice, and embody the science of mind and spirit as a way of life, we are called into a more profound depth of responsibility, accountability, and intentionality as it relates to manifesting our we believe statements and the CSL Global Vision statement. Because we cannot manifest a world that works for all if we pause for a second. Let's go back. So this is your opportunity. If you're not familiar with the we believe statements, I invite you to go read them. And if you can't find them, they're in the Science of Mind magazine. They're online, but if you can't find them, reach out to me. Same thing for the CSL Global Vision statements. If you're not familiar with them, if you can't find them, reach out, because the fact that they're here is our invitation to read over them, become familiar with them, and then do the work. Because once again, we cannot manifest a world that works for all if we're not familiar with these things. We cannot do any of this, which is creating anew, if we continue to do things the way they've always been. We continue with the status quo, being in the world and of that world and operating within, right? So once again, we cannot manifest a world that works for all if we continue going down that road of it's always been done this way. That's how it is. That's just the way it is. You can't change. Don't upset the apple cart. Or any number of other status quo affirmations of lack, of scarcity, of oppression. Living the science of mind and spirit means we disrupt what was or is in order to create what can be and make what can be what must be what is. So we are invited to be unbound and be unstoppably aligned with principle. You are God. Now act like it. This week's affirmation, our declaration, I will say it first, and if it resonates with you, say it with me on the second go round. I am free from limitations. I am unstoppable in God, with God, as God. Together. I am free from limitations. I am unstoppable and unbound in God, with God, as God. And so it is. This week's journal questions and study group questions. Number 1. In what ways, in what areas of my life do I really feel unbounded and unstoppable? In what ways and in what areas of my life do I feel bound and stopped? Number 2. What am I free to and what am I free from? Number 3. What can I do to resolve or reinforce the experience of being unbounded and unstoppable? Number 4. How does being unbounded and unstoppable feel in my body? What does it look like to live this way? How do I address such things as oppression when I live this way? Lack, scarcity when I live this way? Enslavement in any form when I live this way? What does it look like? And how do I address such things? And lastly, how do I know when I am or when I am not on the right track, meaning the unbounded and unstoppable path of living? How do I know when I am and how do I know when I am not? Breathe. Breathe as we enter into that state of consciousness that is infinitely, it is so unbounded and so unstoppable that those words are completely ineffective to even use. Even saying it is boundless, it's using the word bound. And in this infinite consciousness, such an idea as being bound simply isn't. So we enter into this ever expansive, ever liberating, ever freeing, ever evolving state of awareness, state of being. Knowing that this what it is, that what it is, exactly what it is exactly what we are. I am the infinite, ever expanding, ever evolving consciousness that God is. I am that, and am that which I am ever becoming more of it. Because this body is limited, limited in height, limited in weight, limited. And yet the truth of my being is without limits. That which God is far more than this body, far more than this skeletal system, far more than the name, far more than these words. That which it is everybody. Everybody that has been, everybody that is, everybody that will be, and everybody that ever could be. It's all of it. It is every word that was spoken, every word that was wanting to be spoken that wasn't, every word that is spoken, every unspoken, yet to be spoken, unspoken word throughout. It is all of it and more. Every thought that was, is, or ever could be. It is the formed, the unformed, the yet to be formed. It's all of it and so much more. And what it is, I am, as Dr. Holmes said, that which is true of God is true of you. I truly am unbounded and unstoppable because I am the universe in expression. I am the infinite, the one mind, the one life, spirit, God, source. I am it. It is me. It is living, moving, and having its beingness in, through, and as this incarnation. Truly I am. unbounded and unstoppable. And what is true of me is true for everyone gathered here today. Unbounded and unstoppable, which means when I see systems of systemic oppression in the world, being of a consciousness that is unbounded and unstoppable, I do what Dr. Strange did in that first movie with Dormammu. I bring time to the timeless. In other words, I bring the unbounded and unstoppable emancipation, liberation, and freedom to the very systems of oppression, lack, and scarcity. I bring prosperity. I bring joy. I bring peace. I bring to all that is of this consciousness that is bound and is that which is stopped. And in bringing this to it, I live as I demonstrate what it means to be a transformative agent, the presence of healing, the illumination of evolution and enlightenment. I bring that to these spaces, to the classrooms, to the boardrooms, to the voting booth. I bring it when I walk the street, catch the bus, fly on a plane. I bring it everywhere I am, everywhere I go. I bring that because it's with me. It is me. I don't have faith. Faith has me. I'm not simply unbounded and unstoppable. That which is it has me. And I bring it everywhere I go. And these systems are transformed. And what is true of me is true for each and every person gathered here now. The law says yes. The creative medium receives, says yes, and acts accordingly. And this word is made flesh. It is become law unto my life. It is the very effect that is birthed from the cause, from the awareness, from the knowing, from the practice, from the living, from the walking the walk. A world that works for all is already showing up right here and right now in how I live, move, and have my beingness. And I am contagious with it. And I bring it everywhere God is, in every way that I possibly can, as do we all. Our lives are our amen. So it is. And so it is. Blessings, much love and appreciation. And as always, we will see you soon.